Good evening and welcome to BarbWire Strategy. It has been a long month. Let me start at the very beginning of this, and that is, well, first, let me say that this is the preamble to Season 2, which should have come back in May, but I'm a little bit behind. But let me tell you a little bit about what's going on and what has gone on since May. I recorded a very long 1.5 hour show on May the 20th, and it was all on the corona and the Chinese flu stuff. It was an hour and a half, and nobody wants to sit through an hour and a half of a show. So what I did is I decided to cut it up into 8 parts, each of them being about 10 minutes long. And I proceeded to put each one of these out as I was able to. And of course, I realize that I do a lot of production. My wife has been telling me for a long time that I put way more production time into these things than they're worth. I've finally come to the conclusion that she's right about that. I put out 5 different films on the Chinese flu, and I got to a point where I was going to do the other 3. And then we ran into a huge snag. June the 12th. Let me tell you a little bit about what's been going on personally with our family, and it has to do also with the entire country. I think that a lot of you will be able to relate to it. You see, on June the 12th, India, my daughter, who has been on some of these films,
Oh, hello, Mr. President. No, he's not in right now. He's out talking to the mechanic about our airplane. Yes, this is India.
she was a valet downtown Fort Worth, working for a company that subcontracted to the Bass Group, the Sundance Square. On that night, she was working on 3rd and Exchange in front of the Cheesecake Factory. She was looking forward to working there that night because up until that point, she hadn't been able to do anything but work during the daytime hours in front of the Bass Building, parking cars for lawyers and bankers who generally don't tip very much, if any at all. And so this was a Friday night, June the 12th, and she was looking forward because it was going to be an evening on the weekend, and she was going to make some good tips. And then coming down the road, as we've all seen, are the terrorists. Now, I know a lot of you call them protesters, but they're not protesters. They're terrorists. They're extortionists. And they're out for violence and to get their way. Is that they came in and they took up the entire intersection. The police didn't do anything at all about it. They just stood around and watched. Of course, I'm not blaming the police. This is the city management. Betsy Price and the council, they've told the police to stand down in Fort Worth, as they have in many other cities, to not get involved, to not prevent them from exercising their First Amendment rights. But you see, the First Amendment rights might give you the right to protest or to speak, which I back that. But it doesn't give you the right to clog traffic up. It doesn't give you the right to harass businesses or harass citizens or harass employees of companies, which is exactly what happened to India. Her boss came up to her at that time and said, listen, the street is clogged up with these terrorists and we're not going to be able to park any cars tonight. Well, she turned to her boss at that point and said, well, then why am I here? I'm not going to make any tips. And he said, well, maybe they'll go away later on. Of course, she knew they wouldn't. She had been watching them for the last week or so. And wherever they went, they camped out for the entire night. She knew that her whole night was going to be spoiled. She was reasonably upset. We don't believe in the cause of Black Lives Matter. We don't believe in the cause of Antifa. We don't support any of those things.
I was filming the parade and then you called, so I didn't. You kept jumping me off the video.
Let's drive past him and yell, "Make America Great Again."
At that point, she stood there having to stand there and listening to their rhetoric and their garbage and all their screaming and yelling, and a few of them were using megaphones. She has video of it.
And we don't know how to be when we're outside now. No. That's why we're here to say, hey guys, they've taken a lot from us. They put us in this situation, and it's not fair.
It's funny how people walk away when they don't want to hear what somebody's talking about. And that's the problem right there. You're the problem. When you walk away and try to act like we not here, we gonna be here every single day. We ain't going nowhere.
The protesters came up to her and they started to harass her because they saw the look on her face. It was not a very nice look. She was not happy at all because that meant the whole night she wasn't going to make any money. She was just going to make whatever the wages they were paying her. They said, you know, what's wrong with you? Don't you believe in our cause? She said, no, I don't believe in your cause. But go ahead and protest. Maybe you'll get it over, get it out of yourself so I can make some money tonight. And that upset them. They got up in her face. They got to their phones. They started harassing her. They started calling her all kinds of curse words and names. And of course, she had a tag on her shirt. At that point, they said, oh, we're going to get you, you white racist, blah, blah, blah. I refuse to use out-and-out curse words on YouTube or Bitchute. I should mention that. This is also on Bitchute. It's been, all of my shows have been on Bitchute, and I should have mentioned Bitchute a long time ago. Now that we're moving into season 2, I want to promote Bitchute, not necessarily YouTube. And I'll get to YouTube in just a minute. But the bottom line here is that they started harassing her. They got in her face. They put their phones in her face. They started taking pictures of her. When they told her, they said, well, we're going to get you fired. She looked at him, she smiled, and she said, okay, dude, whatever. Well, this is an okay sign. All of my life, and in fact, if it dates back to World War I, when pilots were ready to take off the runway, they would give this signal. And A-OK means they've checked their systems and they're ready to go, get out of the way, clear the runway, they're ready to fly. They use the same signal in World War II. This signal has been used for ages, for over 100 years now. It means okay. Well, not to the protesters, though. Not to the terrorists, though. What it means to them is white nationalism. It doesn't mean that to us. It doesn't mean that to India. And so, but they took a picture of her. Just at that moment when she did this. And then they got into her social media, and they got into the rest of our social media. And of course, none of it was protected. We didn't lock anybody out. We have nothing to hide. And so what happened after that is overnight, they compiled all of this material, and then they sent it out to the Bass Group, and they threatened the Bass Group. They threatened Sundance Square. They said that if you don't fire India, then we will protest, as they had been doing, in front of all their properties. And in fact, we can't guarantee that there won't be violence. Well, that's all that the Basses had to hear. They immediately called the contractor that she worked for and said, you need to fire India, and if you don't, we'll cancel your contract. Her boss called her the very next morning. He said, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to let you go. He says, I can't lose my business. And he said he was getting calls at his house. He and his wife and his secretary at his office were getting threatening calls, all from Black Lives Matter and probably Antifa types. What happened after that was she lost her job immediately. And then they went after her at TCU. You see, she's a sophomore at TCU, or she's about to be a junior. And they wanted to get her expelled. And then they went after my wife, who also works for TCU. And they went after my wife and my daughter. They harassed them. They threatened them. This is what these people are. And this is why I'm doing this particular show, because I want to expose exactly what is going on both in our personal life and in this country. I'm telling every single person who will watch this show, everybody better wake up now, because all of the statues coming down, all of the flags being changed, all of the mottos and streets being changed, all of this change is not going to end. They're going to dig and dig and dig until they get their Marxist, communist claws in the very fibers of our country. So my wife, the very next Monday morning, she called a meeting with Human Resource to try to get ahead of this thing. They already had paperwork to put her on leave. At that point, my wife became very ill, very ill. She stopped eating. She lost a lot of weight. She became very nervous. It upset all of us. India as well as Alexander. Alexander immediately locked down all of his social media. In fact, India completely obliterated all of her social media. After all of this happened, on July the 6th, instead of fighting it, my wife was being bullied by TCU. And I mean bullied. These worms at TCU that are running TCU, both in her department and the entire university, there needs to be a change of guard completely. This is not the TCU that I graduated from, and I will no longer ever support TCU in any way. And I would encourage anybody who thinks of giving TCU any money to rethink it very carefully, using our story of what happened to us. And I have lots of stories. I have a lot of dirt on TCU. My wife was finally faced with having to have a meeting with the dean and bring her attorney. Unfortunately, we couldn't get any attorney to represent us. We couldn't get any city leader to stand behind us. Not one city leader, not one legislator, and I know them all. Not one would stand up. Every one of them told us either A, we don't have a case because Texas law says your employment is at will and a company can fire you anytime they want, or the real reason, a lot of them told me this, is that they can't touch it. They can't get near Black Lives Matter because it's like radiation. You get near it and you get fried. In fact, a side story to this, on Saturday, after this happened on Friday, my daughter had a friend that worked at the Flying Saucer, which is a restaurant and bar right there on Exchange Street. And this girl had marched with the protesters. She believed in their cause. But she told a lot of them that were friends of hers, she said, you've got the story wrong on India. She's not who you say she is. You shouldn't treat her this way. 2 or 3 hours later, she was fired by her company at the Flying Saucer for speaking up. You see, if you step up and say anything, they're going to put you down. That's why I'm telling each one of you that listens to this. If we don't stand up to these terrorists now, if we don't stand up to this mob, these Marxists, then we're going to lose our entire nation. If you enjoy this episode of BarbWire Strategy, then you'll enjoy all of our episodes. Of course, our main topic is politics and the re-election of Donald Trump, but we also have shows on literature, history, and let's not forget Cigar Nights, where we provide you with an excellent course on the etiquette of smoking fine cigars. Join us throughout the next season in Season 2, where we're going to introduce 3 new topics. And those 3 topics are going to be tarot cards, board games, and a little bit on the financial stock market. I know that's a crazy mix, but just stay with me on this. This is going to be exciting this season. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button. Help me and the Donald out this year, in our election year, to subscribe and like. Like often as you can, just like you should vote as often as you can. Don't forget that if you can't find my show on YouTube, then you can always go to Bitchute, because sometimes YouTube doesn't believe in the First Amendment, but Bitchute always agrees with the First Amendment and never takes anything down. So go to Bitchute and create an account, because I put my stuff up on there too. I'm also trying to upload to other platforms, so look for me on other platforms and I'll keep you informed. Check out my Instagram, my Facebook, and my Twitter, because you can catch me on all 3 of those networks. My name is Colonel Jim Ed Love, and here on BarbWire Strategy, I give you a different perspective to look at the complicated political strategies and problems of the day from a point of view of the 19th century. You see, I have never changed my way of thinking. I still think of things as they were in the 19th century. And every now and then, don't forget that we take a call from very important people all over the world. We might get a call from the Queen of England, or we might get a call from the Pentagon, or we might get a call from Putin himself here on this direct line, or the boys over at the CIA and the NSA. They don't have to watch us. They can just give us a call directly on this line. And also, let's not forget that Donald Trump calls us on this line right here. This candlestick phone is directly to the White House, and he likes to call me for consent, advice, and just to have a friendly ear to listen to him at the end of the day. So join us on BarbWire Strategy, where we can give you a direction on where to go in these complicated political times. Oh, wait a minute. There's the Queen of England. Hold on. That's the Pentagon. I better get that. No, wait a minute. There's Putin. I wonder what he wants. Oh, the boys at the CIA have something to say. Hold on. Ah, there we go. There's the phone call. Hey, listen, I'll have to join you later. Hello, Mr. President.
Hello.
We'll see you next time on BarbWire Strategy.
How are you? How you doing? Okay.
How are you doing, Mr. President?
The news is fake. It's a.
Yes, I know. These are complicated times.
Nobody has any idea how dishonest it is. Actually.
Well, I don't know.
It's incredible. It's even hard for me
Well,
to...
I'm sure that we can find an answer to that.
I would say far worse than 4 years
Yes, sir.
ago. They're just unhinged. And I'll tell you, you're going to be back soon, and you're going to have a great, you watch, a transitional third quarter. You're transitioning in, and your fourth quarter is going to be really good. And I think next year is going to be better than even what it